Hey, what's up everyone? It's your boy James Kraze Billings, the executive producer of the Untold Story series. But today we're going to tackle something different, and it's fashion. Now, the 90s were an era like no other. It actually produced more multi-million-dollar black companies in music and fashion than any other time in history. But did you ever wonder what happened to those fashion companies that had such an impact? Most of those companies combined made over $1 billion, and then they were gone. Today, I'm releasing a documentary called Drip, The Rise and Fall of the 90s Street Fashion, and it explores several companies and their success on pushing the culture. So grab you something to drink, something to eat, and maybe something to smoke, because right now, we're gonna get into Drip, The Rise and Fall of 90s Fashion. And by the way, I'd like to shout out my people Shirt Kings for doing my shirt. We out of here.
The following program is rated TV MAL. It contains strong language and is intended only for mature audiences.
In the 90s, there was an insurgence of urban designers that infiltrated the dominant, exclusive fashion world.
We are the originators of streetwear fashion, and what we've done will never be duplicated. You know, we opened up a door and a lane with a lot of people.
Any artist, you wanted to have a look that you were comfortable in, but you still was stylish, and it wasn't like, okay, this is my everyday. That's where Fresh to Death came in, existence and all of that.
Being a store owner during the period of, I would call it like the black clothing renaissance.
Let's go.
Well, evolution of hip hop and clothing, early 1990s. Hip hop and clothing came together and sort of bumped heads.
Wasn't really personally interested in fashion until the urban insurgence, when things really started to kind of fall into my scope.
What we learned during Mecca, which we carried on to Aniche, was that we had to be innovative, we had to be next level, but we always had to be high-end in quality at our price.
Its intent is to develop hip-hop culture in all areas, including fashion, which we have PHAT Farm, which is our clothing company, which is developing in America to quite a large audience, it looks like.
With bold styles, colors, and designs, most of the designers came from the inner cities across the country.
Everyone thought I was really crazy for, taking a step out and pretty much putting everything that I owned on the line to start a clothing company for African Americans.
With their own styles that played heavy into the image of hip hop and the artists at that time. Before you knew it, urban fashion became a multi-million-dollar business.
We were nervous about going to the show, but we went to the show and we got a lot of orders.
I started saying, wow, the people want this, in a big way.
About $3 million.
Like, yo, where's my contract at? We just did $4 million in 3 days, and you don't have my contract still.
In the 90s, the Carl Kani's, Damon Johns, April Walkers, Carl Jones, and many other designers all started making their clothing in their respective cities, selling and having success on a local level.
Originally from Detroit, Michigan, and moved here to New York City in about 1996 for the second time. And since then, been doing my thing.
We had a shop called Fashion in Effect, and we used to have a lot of people come in Fashion in Effect and ask for just us to make everything, because there was nothing for the culture at that time.
But with the success of Cross Colors securing over $20 million in sales, one by one, corporate backers found partnerships with the phenomenon of streetwear companies and designers.
There's another player emerging out there, and while there's no particular cachet associated yet with this young New York designer's name, it may just be a matter of time before you recognize his name and his clothes. The rags to riches story of Damon John and his apparel line called FUBU.
Street clothes the kids in the suburbs want.
FUBU is a phenomenon. Is it hot? Ultra.
A phenomenon because just 6 years ago, FUBU was little more than the dream of 4 lifelong friends. The FUBU founders, Damon John, Carl Brown, J. Alexander Martin, and Keith Perrin, spent every waking hour designing and sewing and selling clothes.
These guys saw us as, you know, look at these young cats out here doing it. You know, these cats are really doing it. They're really doing numbers. They're on TV every 5 minutes. They're on all these stations. You know, these cats is driving around in Bentleys and Maybachs and, you know, coupes and all kind of coupes and trucks. And, like, you know, we were, you know, living that life.
Like hip-hop, the designers became celebrities and taking a page from Shirt Kings, who were a powerhouse upstart in the late 80s, who made airbrush characters on clothing a cultural access pass to being fly. The key was putting your drip on rap artists. So they took the blueprint. When the urban clothing lines took the blueprint, they had to figure out that you guys had all these celebrities wearing your stuff. But now they went from, you know, airbrushing to actual clothing.
Right.
And so they used the blueprint of, let's get the rappers to wear our clothes.
Right.
When did everything start to change for Shirt Kings?
Well, I want to say around 93, 94 started to change, you know.
So Versace doesn't do it for you, neither does Armani. Well, maybe the styles of a designer born from the hood might suit you. He is young, he is hot. Check him out with our Straight from the Streets team, Keith O'Derrick.
I think the whole concept started way back from the streets of Brooklyn, New York. Just basically staying out there and keeping the name out there and doing a lot of advertisement and always giving props to the people on the streets, things like that.
Now, when you say you started in Brooklyn, New York, I understand that you started in the back of your BMW.
Basically, we used to go up to the clubs and stuff like that and had a trunk open. So when people used to come out to clubs, we just like try to hit them off with some linen suits or something like that. And that kind of helped put the name out there. So it all started off like a hustling thing. And, you know, we did all the bad things in the streets just like anybody else, you know, ran with the crew. But it just came a point where I decided that, you know, I want to do something positive and turn, you know, do some legitimate business.
How did you manage to hold fast to the rope of your dreams?
Well, it's always about staying focused and, you know, being successful at the same time. By growing up in the inner city, that taught me a lot in order to be able to progress in the business world. Because you see, the way I see it is that a lot of times society don't teach you a lot of things, but the streets teach you a lot.
The big urban brands of the 90s were successful. They all came from humble beginnings, with the unique stories of struggle and fate. But most of their success came from what Shirt Kings did in the 80s by putting their clothing on music artists in a new genre of music called hip-hop.
You had to have that look.
Right.
Just like these entertainers saying, I respect them and love them for saying it.
Yeah.
They say, like, listen, if you didn't have a Shirt King shirt back then, you really wasn't saying anything. You wasn't really nobody, you know what I'm saying? I don't care what record you put out.
Right.
You had to have a Shirt King shirt
Right.
or some Dapper Dan wear.
Right.
Those were the main two. Then Eddie Go Cap came behind
Right.
that, you know what I mean?
Right.
As a stylist with any artist, I ask to see their music. I ask to listen to the music first. And then after I listen to the music, I ask to get to know them. Because I think it's really important to know like who they are, where do they hang out, what do they vibe on. Because you want to know who people are. You know, you want to understand their personalities. Because then as you're stretching them in their image, you want to stretch them and maybe push the envelope a little bit, but you don't want to make them something they're not.
There's this guy named Sean Combs, Puff, that she just believed in him, felt he was going to blow up. Right. And this is before he started Bad Boy Records, just before Biggie and Craig Mack. He was still at Uptown at the time. Just something about his energy. And when I met, I totally understood what she meant by that. So we met. He came down to the studio, to our warehouse in Commerce, California. And, you know, it was his choice to pick out the white piece that he wore in the ad campaign. And it was just ended up being an iconic, classic campaign that really set the brand off.
We're a designer jean company first and foremost, and we just grow and grow and grow, go to next levels and heights you wouldn't expect us to go to. It has a modern, sleek type of streamlined type of look. A lot of attention to details, very tone on tone, color on color, not too busy. A commitment to the direction from beginning to end. A warrior type of swagger, a attitude.
I was able to survive and make a living with that, and it was a great time because it's nothing like having a store full of black-owned brands and you're a black store owner. So you can see in everybody that's buying from you are black, Spanish, Latino, even white people were buying these black-owned brands.
Because now you had a variety of clothes to choose from.
Right.
You say, I still want me a Shirt King jacket with rhinestones, or I'm still going to get me a Dapper Dan wear, or I'm going to get me a Tony Alamo jacket with rhinestones, or I'm going to get me a cross colors.
Yep. To the north, to the south, to the east, to the west. I don't discriminate, boy, I bring it to
Hi, here we are at Phat Farm. Phat Farm is a company based on the same energy as our music company, and as our film, as our TV company, all from the same culture, young urban culture. And it's about young American, classic American sportswear in the same kind of way as, you know, like what Polo used to be for America, what Phat Farm intends to be for the future.
You guys dominated that era of what most people call the golden era of hip hop. This is when everybody from Queen Latifah to Big Daddy Kane to Kool G Rap, everybody was wearing, it was Dapper Dan or Shirt Kings, right?
Right.
And so we get to a point where the flow of the music business starts to change. The temperature of fashion starts to change. Now you have companies, like I said, like Carl Kanai coming in.
Right.
So how did that affect your business is what I'm really trying to get at. In what way did it affect what you guys were doing?
Well, it didn't really, like I said, if anything, it kind of still helped us, you know what I mean? Because it's not like we were a fad and it was over with since everybody wanted actual clothes from these designers and everything.
Okay.
So we was looked at as designers of unique hip art.
Right.
You know, so if you wanted some hip art done on your clothes, you're still gonna go to Shirt Kings.
Right.
Because the name is stamped.
Right.
You know, the brand is there.
Right.
So we was like these guys, but we weren't making our actual clothes ourselves.
Right.
African American Allegiant, AACA, better known as. Yeah, all the sweatshirts. Yeah, that's all old school. My man, who I'm working with these days, Bobby Joseph, has worked with that early on, and Chris Latimer and all them developed those brands early on. That's the beginning of urban fashion to me.
If you know hip hop, you have to do the whole history of hip hop, not just the music, the clothes, everything, the dancing, the graffiti.
Right.
You have to do your homework with hip hop, you know.
Right.
And we know that we are part of hip hop, you know, we're a big part of hip hop. You know, people say, "Oh, Nike, you're a legend," and you know, I'll be like, "Thank you." You know, I'm still Nike. You know what I'm saying? I'm not that type of person, but I appreciate the fact that you recognize who I am and what I've contributed.
Using unifying colors and def denim to express what they call clothing without prejudice.
It was difficult in the beginning. Because it was at the time we started, which was approximately a year ago, it was at the time of the war. The retail was awful. We were, beginning of a recession, and actually the banks and everyone thought I was really crazy for, taking a step out and pretty much putting everything that I owned on the line to start a clothing company for African Americans.
Ethnic-oriented clothing. That's the image we want to portray. But everything from our advertising, from our posters, from everything. We used black models, and we even told people from the beginning that we were designing a line for ethnically oriented people, for our people. So, which was scary for us, in a sense, because everyone in the industry, a lot of people had been doing clothes which were geared towards that market, but they would never say it right out or have it written down. They were producing clothes for that market, but we boldly said that we were, and we were a black-owned company, and we wanted to do that.
One of the biggest destinations and proving grounds was in Las Vegas at a trade show called Magic International.
Magic was crazy. Magic was crazy. And this is coming from a veteran that did 14 of them. 7 years, 2 times a year, every August, every February. Every brand that I had been with, I went to Magic with.
All the major players like Polo and Tommy Hilfiger would share space with the new rock stars of streetwear fashion.
But it was a lot of black people participating in it. Like when FUBU had Magic Johnson there, I was there when they had Magic Johnson. And then line was down the block. It was a whole bunch of people there to see Magic. Master P came through with 50 models when he had his clothing line going on. So Magic was like Greek Fest, kind of like, but for fashion.
From overcrowded booths to celebrity appearances, professional ball players and parties, Magic was as much as a hangout as it was a business. But don't get it twisted. A lot of these brands were writing millions of dollars in purchase orders while showing their presence and making their presence felt at Magic. This is where music, sports, and fashion would collide. And if you weren't at Magic, then your brand just didn't exist. We'll explore the live action of Magic and much more in part 2 of the 3-part docuseries Drip, the rise and fall of the 90s streetwear brands.